Our focus tonight, Afenifere calls on the Yoruba people to activate traditional self-defense against future herdsmen attacks. And also, President Muhammadu Buhari had a lot to say concerning his next 4 years in office and what he hopes to achieve. Hello there and welcome. This is Plus Politics. I'm David Alabi. Now, in a recent interview, the president spoke of his plans for Nigeria and how he hopes to achieve them. Well, let's start off the program taking a look at what he had to say. Okay, we'll definitely bring you the feed, but joining us in our Lagos studio to take a look at the president's interview with Adamu Sambo on NTA, we have Ugochukwu Ekeako, political affairs analyst. Good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm sure you have a whole lot to say about the president's interview with Adamu Sambo. Now, let's start off with the president talking about security. And then he said, well, so far, he still stands on his ground. Boko Haram has been defeated, and they don't hold any local government, and they've been pushed beyond their grip. What do you make of that?
Well, I think for me, I think we have a president that is not willing to listen to other dissenting voices around him. Just last week, we saw a video that Boko Haram released where Nigerian soldiers and some other officers of different armed forces were executed. All right. So, and this is up to a week where we lost these soldiers and everybody saw them. Some of them have been kidnapped for months, and you could imagine their family seeing the loved ones being killed just like that. So for him to say that we've defeated Boko Haram or we no longer have insecurity issues, he's just denying the obvious.
He did not necessarily say we don't have insecurity issues here in the country, but he just says that with Boko Haram, we've technically once again defeated them.
We've not.
Let's just say that.
We've not, because if we've defeated Boko Haram, they will not be killing our soldiers.
Okay, well, he also blames community leadership and also the police when we are looking at kidnappings and other ramification of insecurity within the country. What do you have to say to that? Because we've seen instances where our communities have not necessarily lived up to the expectation.
The biggest problem we have with President Buhari is that he has a knack for taking the blame away from himself and giving it to another person.
So you're siding Yakubu Dogara now.
I'm not siding Yakubu Dogara.
Let's just quickly take a look at the video footage of yesterday's interview with Adamu Sambo.
I think it's a relief to the people of Northeast, especially for really degrading the Boko Haram. If you go to the Northeast, you will try and find out. They used to occupy 17 local governments. They are now not holding any local government. They have but resorted to holding some islands on the Lake Chad and indoctrinating young people, especially girls, wrapping them up with explosives and sending them to soft targets, churches, mosques, marketplaces, and motor parks. So really, our first identified assignment of securing the country, we have achieved some success. The economy, we are very lucky. God has heard our prayers. The rainy season were good, the last 2 rainy seasons. We made fertilizer available and some of the inputs, and we have virtually achieved food security. But the frustration, as I said, is taking too long, by my own hope, to see that people are punished, those who have frustrated the economic development of the country, because what resources we have been getting in terms of revenue, we ought to have been putting it into the infrastructure, the roads, the rail, power, and that will enable innovative Nigerians, entrepreneurs, to go about their own businesses But when the infrastructure is lacking, there isn't much they can do.
And that was President Muhammadu Buhari speaking there. And before we took that footage now, you were talking about your response to his stance whereby he blamed community leadership and the police having failed, and looking at that in relation to the spate of kidnappings and banditry and other forms of insecurity in the country.
The way policing works in this country is that the commissioner of police in all the 36 states, they report directly to Abuja. And the man in Abuja, talking about the new IGP that was sworn in last week, reports directly to the president. So if the president is saying that the police has failed, he's absolving himself of the failure of leadership, or because the police, they do not act independent of themselves. They work in line with him, and he is the general commander of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not Federal Republic of Katsina. So to an extent, to a big extent, the responsibility of the failure of the police lies on him. All right.
The last time, you're not necessarily looking at the chain of commands. We have the commissioners, we have the...
They report to him.
It's a long chain.
No, they report to him. And last time, the new IG, all right, went to the National Assembly to answer to the National Assembly on the failure of the police department to do their job very well.
They blamed funding.
He blamed funding. He blamed poor equipment and the rest of them. And this can only happen. This has happened so far because we have an executive that have not placed priority on funding the police adequately, making sure that the right people are there.
Okay, now I'd like to counter you there, because now the president has said one of the biggest frustrations he had within the last 4 years of his administration was the fact that we weren't able to move fast enough in terms of prosecution and punishing identified corrupt individuals, and he also touched on recovered fixed assets as well. But he said now with this new mandate as president-elect, and come tomorrow, President of Nigeria, once again, he's going to prioritize the judiciary as well as the police. Are you impressed with this new stance of Mr. President, and to what extent would you expect him to drive this course to ensure that we see a stronger judicial system, as well as we also have reforms within the police and ensure that they live up to their mandates?
Talking about corruption, first of all, we have a Babachi Lawal that is still working free in this country. All right, he was former SGF to Mr. President under this first tenure, and Babachi Lawal embezzled money that was meant for IDPs. All right, at present we have close to 1 million Nigerians. The last time the high-ranking UN official was here a few weeks back, he spoke to the president. He said we have close to 1 million Nigerians, 1 million Nigerian children. All right, that they don't know their parents because they were born in all these IDP camps and because of the challenge of insecurities. And this is the same money that was meant for them that Babachi Lawal took away to do whatever he wants to do. Today he's still working free. So if Mr. President is saying that he has been firm on corruption and rest of them, Babachi Lawal should be chilling somewhere in Kuje prison or Krikri. So for me on that, he has not done anything. And in terms of judiciary, you cannot have an effective judiciary if you miss one of the critical points, one of the critical elements, which is the independence of the judiciary. All right? We've seen so far the executive, the legislature, and the...
From his body language, he says that he's going to do all it to take that for that synergy between the executive, legislature, and judiciary. So every single elements that needs to be put in place for the judiciary to function, he will be willing to avail himself and other resources. I'm talking about the police as well.
At present, where we have an issue within the judiciary sector, right? The last CGM was removed.
So do you think we should just rule it out that he shouldn't start on a clean slate with a stronger vigor in all of these areas?
It doesn't look like someone that wants to start on a clean slate. He just told us that he wants to continue with majority of ministers that serve under his tenure.
He has not talked about his cabinet so far to anyone.
He said it in part of the interviews that he's going to continue with some of the people that have worked with him. And also we have a minister of...
we can't say who exactly he's continuing with, because he hasn't made it known.
No, he has not made it known. So if he has made that suggestion about taking some of them because according to him they've performed, all right, that shows that this man is not ready to start on a clean slate. That's my argument.
Your argument, do you necessarily know who on his page or on his book has relatively done well and deserves a second chance? You never can tell.
We're here, we can analyze them, because at present we have a sports minister that is here to pay back the money that IAF, that's the International Athletics Foundation, transferred mistakenly to him, and now he didn't pay that. So what means that now we'll take this old issue into a new administration, and most likely IAF will suspend us from participating in the next athletics convention.
Did Mr. President speak with you and say that the Minister of Sports is coming back?
He didn't speak to us, but he didn't do anything. He's his minister.
Okay, let's just wait for the next cabinet and then we'll see what happens.
We're having more problems. We're going into a new administration with more problems. So how is that a new phase?
Talking about problems now, the president also touched on the relationship between the executive as well as the 8th National Assembly, and he said, well, every single arm of government needs to understand the areas where they operate, and he said the relationship between the executive and the 8th National Assembly was frosty because the National Assembly was over-asserting itself, thinking that it was the arm of government to call all of the shots without respecting that of the executive.
Well, that is his opinion. I could always say, all right. The most important thing, I think, Mr. President, one of the best things
with respect to the budget passage, holding it for 7 months.
The budget passage. See, there is a time. If there is a time where the budget is supposed to be presented to the National Assembly, and there is supposed to be a time where the MDAs, that's the ministry, come to defend the budget before the next budget is being presented. All this timeline, as I'm talking to you, all this timeline, this current administration that is starting again tomorrow did not fulfill it, and it cannot blame the National Assembly. The National Assembly has an oversight function, all right? The National Assembly is there to make laws, all right? They are not there to pamper the president. They are not there to say, okay, whatever you say, we're fine with you, right? So he needs to understand that his military mindset in the past doesn't work, doesn't appear here. It is a relationship. That's my issue, right? The executive, the judiciary, and the legislature is supposed to work together as one entity towards driving the Nigeria project forward.
Would you now say that the push by the APC now to ensure that Ahmed Lawan as well as Femi Gbajabiamila have their seats claiming majority solidly is meant to ensure that we have that that not necessarily loyal, but to have a much more seamless relationship? Yes, we understand the dispensation would have back and forths, but to have one that would ensure that the president's dreams are really aligned, because he said, well, the 8th National Assembly did not do enough in terms of supporting the dreams.
That would be the biggest disservice we do at democracy, starting from tomorrow, right? We don't need, I'll say it again, we don't need a National Assembly that is pliant to the president. The fundamental of legislature is checks and balances. A lot of us miss that, right? We don't need a speaker or a Senate president that will go there to rubber stamp whatever the president wants. So we need a legislature that is there to checkmate and make sure that everything is done according to the law, and we not overnight give the president room to do things that are anti the constitution or that will not favor Nigerians. So for me, the most important discussion shouldn't be somebody that will be loyal to the
that the president, in terms of patriotism, now rated the 8th National Assembly low?
Well, that is his opinion, all right? And that is his opinion. And if we go out and ask Nigerians, and if you ask me, I think the reason that we did not move into a meritocracy, that we did not have a military form of democracy, is that because we have a National Assembly that was up to their duty, that was able to do their work. We might hate them, we might hate the Sarakis, we might hate the Dogaras, because we felt that, see, that is not the idea of democracy. The idea of democracy is to make sure that you do your job.
Are you saying Mr. President does not understand?
He does not understand
being a president in a democratic dispensation?
President Muhammadu Buhari does not understand what it entails, the democratic setting entails, because if he understands that, he himself will know that both the judiciary and the legislature, they're all working together. No arm of government is bigger than each other. None at all.
Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, described President Muhammadu Buhari's response so far as being a master of blaming everyone else for the failures and inadequacies within the country. Do you think this exchange of words is healthy for our democracy today? I
think to an extent it's healthy. All right. If I'm Dogara, I won't allow somebody to rubbish my work. All right. Because initially we need to understand that the two of them together were party members. They all worked together to make sure that APC was successful. At the point he became the speaker, later he moved to PDP, and he was in APC for close to 3 years. For close to 3 years as speaker. All right. I think he was just prior to the election proper that he moved to PDP, which it's not up to a year. So is the president telling me that his party member was working against him for the whole 3 years? So it shows that him himself, the leader, because the truth is this, everything rises and falls under leadership. If you are a leader and you fail to work with people, it shows that you do not understand what it takes to be a leader. So for him, it's a failure on his part that he could not manage the relationship between the executive and the judiciary very, very well. It's an indictment on his character as a leader.
Talking about indictments now, one of the biggest issues that people also raised, it was one of the silent noises that people raised is the fact that the president said that we've been able to get to that point where we have food security in the country, which means that every single Nigerian has easy access to food. We are well fed, and you know what that means. If you're fed enough, you'd be exporting. We wouldn't have people going hungry. But that's a different picture we have. We are not meeting our rice production, local production, our tomato, name them the different food crops and cash crops. We are still not there. And the president says that the task of having food security has gotten a tick, and we are fine.
But did he mention any food security, any product that we're exporting at this present? Because even rice.
He said we've had good rains, and then farmers were provided with fertilizer, and we have food security in the country.
We don't have food security in the country, because I've been listening to it. I've been saying, what is it yam? Is it cocoyam? Is it cashew nut? Is it rice? Because we're still import rice.
So do you say he doesn't have any evidence to back all of what he's saying, and it's superficial?
It's superficial because it does not translate to what we're seeing on the street. All right, we can't say we have food security, whereas there is a high level of insecurity, because to a great extent, security works well with food security. All right. For example, look at the northeast region. All right. The pastoralists. All right. The guys that rear cattle, they cannot do anything because of the high level of insecurity. So what happens is that they come down to the middle belt, which is the middle belt, which is the production capital. That's the agricultural bed of the country. There is crisis. A lot of these farmers cannot produce. So if these farmers are not producing, where are we getting all the food? Is it from Lagos? Or is it from Ogun State? Or is it from Enugu? Or is it from Opiweka? So it does not make sense, all right? If there is no production going on in Benue, in around Kaduna, around Nasarawa, because of insecurity, how I don't know, is it a miracle that we just wake up one morning and we'll have food security? It doesn't make sense. And when we say it looks like we're trying to make the president look bad, all right? It does not translate to what we're seeing in the street. Food cost is rising every day. If we have food security, that means I can take as little as 5,000 naira, go to the market, buy a lot of stuff that I'll go back home, put in the refrigerator. So it does not correlate to what's happening on the street. And the truth is that the presidency, when he's in Aso Rock, he's shielded from the realities of the everyday Nigerians. All right? And you need to understand that the culture of Nigerian politics, where you have the yes men.
The president has continuously said he understands the plight of every single Nigerian. He does not understand the plight of every single Nigerian. He does not sleep on the Obalande Bridge. He does not enter bus to move from Aja to Bega inside traffic. He has all of the reports and records.
The report did not change our lives in 4 years. So how does he understand the plight of ordinary Nigerians? The people that are being kidnapped on Kaduna Expressway every day, or the people that die because of a high level of insecurity across the country. So the people that can't access quality health care, but the president has access to fly his first class jet to United Kingdom to access the best of health care. So for me, we say this thing because it's easier for him to stay in Aso Rock shielded, which is nice, wanting to be protected, all right? And people, the yes men, will come and say, sir, everything is fine. Okay, we've done everything. No. There's no way he can feel the heartbeat of the nation if the same people that are supposed to serve him and tell him the truth are not telling him anything, and he himself doesn't want to ask questions further.
Interesting. Now, the president also touched on the service chief's performance, but for me, I felt he did not necessarily deal with that question or respond in a manner that was convincing enough. That's my own personal opinion.
For now, we're agreeing on something for the first time today. That's good. We're making progress.
But talking about service chiefs, now he said he was expecting a little bit more, and between 1990 and 2014 he didn't seem to understand what happened to the efficiency and then the accountability of the military. But now talking about the service chiefs and other ministers that people were expecting that the president would have had a little bit of reshuffling here and there in areas where we did not see optimal performance. But the president did not really touch much on those areas. He only said, well, he wasn't sure as to what was going wrong, and these service chiefs could not just have been moved from their different offices just like that and put in new faces. So this time around, as Mr. President is coming in for another 4 years with the new ministers and service chiefs and the whole team steering the affairs of the country for the next 4 years, do you think we'd have another case where people have said we don't necessarily have round pegs and round holes?
The president said that he doesn't know what's happening. That's why he said, all right. And I want to believe that if you're looking for an elected position,
he grew through the ranks within the military.
He grew through the ranks within the military, and after his military career, right, he had to start contesting for presidency and the rest of them. So from 1999 to 2004, wherever he said,
1990 to 2014.
2014, you want to be the president of Nigeria, but you did not study to understand the current realities and the issues we face. This is 2019. We don't have Nigerian soldiers going to Liberia, Sierra Leone to fight the Ecomog wars. The realities has changed, all right, in terms of the enemies at home that will fight, the things that will fight, in terms of the growing insurgents and the rest of them. So if he says he does not understand it, as of yesterday night when we had this broadcast, it's difficult for me here sitting down at this moment to accept that he's going to understand.
He says it is difficult for him because he's been in their position, understands the antics that play out, and he doesn't seem to understand why the military is not being accountable and efficient enough.
If he doesn't understand it, then the next thing to do is to seek to find answers to it. He shouldn't be telling us because we're paying taxes for him to do this job.
Okay. Now, quickly now, the president doing things differently. His last words, because he was really emphatic now. He says that he hopes to tackle security head on. That's looking at the police, and also we look at our judiciary as well, making it much more efficient. And it says that, well, those are the areas which define the front line of law and order in the country. What do you expect of Mr. President now, backing all of these words, not necessarily just plain lip service?
Hope is not a strategy, all right? And we've seen how the last 4 years, from 2015 today being the 28th of May, all right, 2019, how it has been, how the economy went from good to shambles and the rest of them. We've seen how insecurity is now the order of the day in the country, and we're going into a transition the next few hours, all right? There is no sign somewhere, there is no sign of rainbow or to say that, okay, the morning is coming, all right? Is a new day coming. We can feel that.
You talk of a few hours now to tomorrow, but some would also say that as the inauguration is holding, the cabinet should also be set, but we've not had Mr. President speak on who.
Well, maybe he's going to break his record this time. The last time it took him more than 6 months. So hopefully, maybe it will take him less in the coming weeks for him to announce. And these are part of the conversation that we're supposed to be having at this point. We need to know, okay, already we've started the issue of the central bank. MFLA has another tenor going for him, all right? But we're supposed to know, okay, who will be the Minister of Finance? Who is going to be in charge of national planning? Who's going to be the Minister of Interior because of the security issues that we have in the country at the moment? These are the conversations that I was expecting to hear in terms of give the country some hope, or like let Nigerians hold on to something. But we didn't have that. A lot of what he said yesterday was absorbing himself of the blame. He is the GCFR, the General Commander of Federal Government of Nigeria. Everything rises and falls under leadership. So he's supposed to take a large chunk of the blame of what has happened. And if he cannot do that at this point, that means that if we move in tomorrow, he's still going to absorb this blame and shift this blame to himself. So when they came in, they said it was all PDP. That PDP wasted so many years now. The administration is over. Now we're hearing Saraki and Dogara. So I don't know what's going to happen next tomorrow. Maybe because already I'm telling you, after the inauguration tomorrow, there will be a lot of in-house fighting among the APC. I don't think, if you ask me, I don't think Lawan or Bamijala will at the end of the day emerge as the Speaker of the Senate. So maybe when they start having this infighting, the president that did not plan ahead will now start telling us that this is another reason why I've not been able to select my ministers.
Okay, Ugochukwu, just in 30 seconds now, the president, his message to Nigerians, he said, expose criminal elements or criminal individuals in your neighborhood, and also let's try as much as possible to attract investors into the country in whatever area be it. We should all have that discourse being the front burner as well, ensuring that we have investors come invest in the country.
quickly on investors, all right, capital is flight. You see, capital moves, all right? The world is watching what's happening to one of the major telecommunication companies at the moment, all right? We'll have EFCC shutting down companies, shutting down offices. You are forcing a company to do things they're not supposed to do. There is no way your body language and your actions are different, and you expect investors to bring in their money. It's difficult, right?
They'll say the ease of doing business initiative is there.
The ease of this does not translate to what they're saying. If the ease of doing business is there, why are you making life difficult for one of the biggest employer of labor in this country? And in terms of telling the citizens to go and do the job of the police, that's another failure.
Okay, Ugochukwu, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And it's countdown till tomorrow. I'm sure you have a smile on your face by the time the president is going to give
I hope the speech tomorrow is inspiring and can unite the nation. We need that.
Thank you very much. It's time to take a quick break. When we return, we will be talking about insecurity further, as well as the stance of Afenifere. Stay with us.